Hello there. How are you doing? Squids here. Dave Kersner in my studio at home. This is studio time with Squids. We're doing this particular segment every uh, Thursday at 4 p.m. Sorry, I just woke up. I've been pulling late nights. I lost track of time. I don't know about you during this strange time. But no, I think generally, I think musicians like to work late sometimes, and then you just keep going, and then you start to see the sun come up. So we're used to that, I think, but now even more. Anyway, our special guest this time is going to be Warren Huart from Produce Like a Pro. This is a good friend of mine who is a Grammy-nominated producer, engineer, musician himself. And he will talk about Sunset Sound Studio Reverb, which we'll be giving away at the end of this broadcast, whatever you want to call it. So that's cool. Stick around for that. I want to tell you first just about a couple cool things going on with IK Multimedia. There's a Spring Strings promo going on, 50% off, Amplitube, anything with strings, Moto Bass, even Sample Tank and Miroslav Philharmonic, there's strings in there. So check that out. Also, there is a brand new video where we talk to Warren Huart. So there's a Warren Huart video talking at Sunset Sound about Sunset Sound Studios. So on IK Multimedia's YouTube, you can check that out. And I think Peter or Rachel, who are here from IK Multimedia, will post a link if you want to check it out from there. There's also a really cool video about Sample Tank CS to check out, and it explains one of the really cool things about that is it's free. Sample Tank CS is free. It's a free virtual instrument. CS stands for Custom Shop, which means all the versions that have CS at the end, first of all, they're free, so you might as well get them if you don't have them. Amplitube CS, T-Rack CS, and Sample Tank CS. And Custom Shop means that it has an app where you can buy custom things. So like for Amplitube, you can buy specific amps, or it's like a shop, or stomp boxes. It's really cool. It's like, it's a custom shop. So, but it's like going to the store. So you could just buy specific things, or you can get those big max bundles to get everything. But anyway, I advise you to go check out, go to the ikmultimedia.com and see what's going on. There's a promo. If you click on promos, I think Rachel or Peter will post a link directly to the promos. Anyway, so let's see. I'm going to have Warren join me here. Warren, if you're watching, feel free to do the thing. We're going to split screen and talk to Warren Huart here in a matter of seconds, or whenever he does it. In the meantime, I'm going to drink this coconut water, which, I don't know, what are you guys drinking? I actually had to take my my vodka out of the freezer because it was like everything in the freezer. It ended up being like, does this have to be in the freezer? Because this is, okay, cool. Ask to join, Warren, and then I will bring you in on the split screen. There's like a thing that you can join, I think. Or do we miss that little, oh, there we go. Okay. Warren should be coming up in a sec. So yeah, I got rid of the vodka in the freezer and replaced it with food.
Yay!
Hey, there he is.
How are you?
How you doing?
I'm good. I'm good. I just got off another live stream on YouTube. I asked everybody to come over here. So any of you guys come over from YouTube? Hello, if you did. And I think Eric is posting in the Academy that we're live now. He's posting. So hopefully, great. I see 60 people in our chat on the other side. So let's send them all over. If you can go to the chat, tell them to come over. How are you? Are you good?
I'm doing okay, thanks. How are you doing?
I mean, good. It's hey, Alexi. Hey, look, yeah, I'm doing good. It's the reality is like a lot of my life has not changed whatsoever. I go to the studio and work all day, and then go back and sleep. Play with the kids and eat and sleep. I think it's maybe we're blessed to have music in our lives, and obviously it's fantastic that you're doing these kind of things now. I mean, this is a great idea to get on live, but you've always been pretty up on streaming and things like that. I think the thing you probably even noticed is quite hilarious. There's a lot of the musicians I knew that weren't really into doing YouTube stuff. Oh, that sucks. And now all doing it frantically. It's like, it's this realization of like, oh yeah, the whole world is at home on their computer. And now it's like, oh, that thing that I told you that sucked, Warren, I'm doing it now.
You want to know something funny?
Yeah.
IK, you know, obviously you know all about the IK interfaces, iRig,
Yep,
and iRig Pro, and everything. And one of the newer ones is this iRig Stream,
yep,
where you can plug in a mixer. I know everybody wants it now, and they're sold out everywhere. It's crazy.
Yeah.
And like I thought like when I first saw this, I was like, iRig Stream. Like, okay, I guess people would want this. And it's like, well, yeah, now they really want it because everybody and their mother's streaming. But you actually are, in my opinion, and many people's opinion, a pioneer of live streaming. You do these incredible, you have this great show called Produce Like a Pro. It's for everybody, I feel, because it's obviously for, I mean, everybody who's, let's say, an engineer or an aspiring engineer, producer, or musician. But it's for everybody from beginner to pro, because I like to consider myself a pro. And I have to admit, I've watched your streams. You've also done a lot of free stuff. You have paid courses, and then you've been doing some free things, which are really appreciated. And I've picked up
we put out
tips
5 free courses.
from you.
Yeah.
That's great. That's really cool. So
I really
why don't you tell us a bit about, tell us about Produce Like a Pro and what you do, what you cover, and what it's all about, how it works.
Well, I think I wanted, it's quite interesting because I wanted something that didn't have the sort of cynicism about it. And I think that it's been fantastic because, you know, when the first person that sort of like introduced me to YouTube was Tim Pierce about 5 years ago. Tim Pierce had, you know, and still does have a really fantastic, vibrant guitar-based YouTube channel. And he told me about it when I was at his house doing a session. He's like, oh yeah, I do this thing called YouTube. And I was like, yeah, I've seen a few people do it. And I'd seen Dave do it, Pensado, and I'd seen Graham Cochran do it, Recording Revolution. And it was sort of like two opposites of the spectrum for me. And I just felt like, where's the thing in the middle that guys like you and I would gravitate towards, where we just kind of like, yeah, it's nice sometimes to talk to the most famous person in the world being a mixer, but what's the real world? You know, I mean, like what you're just talking about, you just exemplified, the real world, because you've got a product to help people stream that was probably selling pretty okay. And now, of course, is like the #1 product in the world. That's just that sort of mentality. I looked at it and thought, well, where's the reality? Where's the bit in between where you can talk to a beginner and you can talk to a professional and connect them together? I think one of the things I've really enjoyed is being able to go over and be just a normal, regular fan of the people I'm talking to, of the musicians that I get to hang out with, and just ask the same dumb questions that we really want to know, you know, rather than being like, I don't want it to be a Chris Farley interview. You know, some of the stuff, remember you know, everybody knows the Chris Farley, Paul McCartney interview. Hey man, you remember when you were like in the Beatles? And do you know you're amazing? I saw a little bit too much of that. And I think one of the ones that I really loved doing was Jack Joseph Puig. When I interviewed him, we were there for, what were we there, 12 hours, 11 hours?
Oh, entire day for sure.
12 hours we were at his house. And we arrived, and the reason why guys like Jack Joseph Puig and we know many of these kind of people are so successful, they have you know, when you first meet Jack, he's quite shy. He's like, hi, you know, and he doesn't seem that outgoing. But when I went to his studio, first of all, it was Eric and Phong Boy, who was a Vietnamese intern. She actually lives in the Netherlands. And we arrived, and immediately you're like, oh, this is why this guy's successful. He greets everybody the same. He talks to everybody exactly the same way when they're in his home. He made us all lunch himself, made the lunch, made the coffee, made the tea. It was just a worker amongst workers kind of feeling. I never understood that when I saw interviews with Jack. You know, it always was sort of like asking very staid questions, which got staid answers. And then when you actually meet him on a one-to-one basis, you're like, he's just like you and me. He's just a massive fan of music. and is obsessed by gear and music and details. And
Yeah.
that's what I wanted to do. I want to get that part out of it, you know. That's what I want to do. I want to bring out the fan. I mean, when I interviewed CLA, it was the same thing. I was like, I just want to know, well, you've got all these posters of all these bands that you've worked with, and I wanted to get back to the little kid inside that wanted to be in the music industry. You know, not the sort of like, oh, boost 10K, use this, because that's the thing we identify with, isn't it? Just like, you know, I'm on a prog rock bend at the moment. I'm sure you got something to do with that, because you know, because last time I saw you, we were talking a bit about it, and of course that's your forte as well. And it's like, just going back and like listening to all those Canterbury bands and all the first 4 or 5 Genesis records. I'm just like, I just feel like I'm 13 again, like looking at the liner notes on Nursery Crime. And that's what I want. I want to be that kid every single day of my life. It's just like, yeah. And that's what I want to bring out and find in these other people. Say again?
You know, actually, you remind me, and I'm fortunate to have met some of these people in really cool circumstances. And I appreciate that quality as well. And one little story I'll tell you about Jack Joseph Puig. Long time ago in the 90s, I was doing a session with T-Bone Burnett and Sam Phillips at Ocean Way. I was walking down the hall and I saw JJP, and he knows me from, I forget how we even met, but he's like, hey, Dave, come here. I got to show you something. I'm like, oh, what? And he's like, oh, just come here. Come in this room. He was so excited. And I sat down. He's like, listen to this. And he cranks up, before the album was out, Jellyfish Spilt Milk. All is Forgiven at like the threshold of pain volume. It was the loudest thing I've ever heard. And he was so excited, like a kid. He's like, what do you think? And I was just, you know, like the Sound Advice or the Maxell with the hair, like it was like that. You know, the guy in the chair with the hair. I was just totally blown away. And he, you know, so that energy of like him being excited to play something really loud, or let's say Tom Lord-Alge or Chris Lord-Alge again, you know, like getting really into old Genesis or whatever excites them, is definitely the inspiration for me, because I think it's, you know, it's important, actually, I think maybe to your success, that you still connect with why you wanted to do this in the first place. Not because you want to win an award, you want to be rich and famous per se. Some people, yes, but more because you were inspired by the Beatles or the Beach Boys or, you know, whatever, whoever, and or reading the liner notes back to the days when you could read the liner notes of albums and seeing who mixed what.
Yeah.
So anyway, so tell me, how did you, because you're always interviewing people and you do such a great job. In fact, you know, I look up to you, and I probably copy some of your things, like giving away something. But tell me, like, so you rarely get to be interviewed yourself. So I want to know more about you. How did you get your start in music to begin with?
It's interesting because I fell in love with music. I always say, I jokingly say, too young. Like, so because I fell in love with music, you know, 7, 8, 9 years old, my dad bought me a night at the opera for Christmas. And my dad was a really good musical snob. You know, he only liked really, really amazing music. So it was, our whole household was full of classical music, all day, every day. My dad was a painter, he was a sculptor, so it was all about the arts. So tons of classical music. The jazz I got to hear was like Joe Pass and Ella Fitzgerald. I mean, it doesn't get any better than that, like live Joe Pass and Ella Fitzgerald. He really loved a lot of jazz piano stuff. MJQ, we used to hear, you know, Milt Jackson every day, but then and Django Reinhardt. So Gershwin, of course. So I got to hear all of this sort of music, but then so for Christmas I get this album, and I am just a little kid. I have no idea what's going on, and I remember opening it up and seeing, you remember the gatefold sleeve, all the lyrics, but then you pulled out the multicolored, you know, the color in sleeve, and there's just all these guys with super long hair, and like, you know, I've got a little conservative schoolboy haircut, and I'm like, what is this, you know? And and I'm listening and I'm reading every lyric. I remember I spent 2 weeks on the first side with my dad's big, huge Sony headphones that would probably like look like Princess Leia slapped on the side of my head, you know. And it was just so. I fell in love with that, and to hear, and that's probably why I'm such a big prog head secretly. You know, not that so secretly, because of that period of Queen when they were just, you know, Prophet's Song, Bohemian Rhapsody, the Insanity, that took me all down King Crimson, Genesis, all of that stuff. And then actually I discovered the Beatles a little later on. I discovered Zeppelin a little later on. Pink Floyd was actually my next gateway drug for me, because Pink Floyd sort of connects rock with prog and everything together. Because on one level, they were a prog band, but on another level, they were like a pop rock band, because they wrote freaking massive hit singles, you know. And so that was like a bit of a gateway drug. And it's great. And I still love all of those things. And I think the older I get, I want to ask you this. I feel like the older I get, the more I love the stuff that I love. It's like, if I love Nursery Crime now, it's like, I have to breathe it now. It's like the air that I breathe. You know, I have to put on headphones. I've made this playlist of about 300 songs, and I can just put on the headphones and I don't get bored of any of it. Nothing bores me. Nothing comes up where I'm like, oh, I've heard that too many times. No, when Perpetual Motion comes up and the band splits off into two headphones and you've got one freaking band playing over here and another band playing over here, it still like sends shivers down my spine. I can't even sing those parts. I mean, just what is that, 71? You know what I mean? So it's just like stuff like that. Yeah, God bless you. So I basically created a career because I started at 15, late, playing guitar at 15, but I wanted to be Brian May, so my dad and I built the guitar together, which is code for my dad built the guitar and I sanded a few things. I mean, he did all the work. Brian says the same thing. Cool. When he talks about his father and he building the guitar. He kind of always says we built it together, but then immediately says, actually, my dad was the smart one. I just kind of, you know, because his dad was an engineer. So I had the same experience with my father, and it was to mirror Brian May. And so we built our first guitar, and that's how I learned to play guitar. I didn't have one. My dad being a painter, being an artist, it was like, I always joke, it's like having a bass player for a father. It's kind of a bit of feast or famine. He got a gig, you know, sell a couple of paintings, you know. But we never felt poor, even though technically we were poor. It never felt that way because, you know, we lived in a beautiful little village, in a tiny little microscopic house, but still beautiful little village. You know, it was a wonderful blessing. And one of the things I think that's a blessing is I wasn't connected at all. I knew diddly damn squat. Living in a village outside of London, didn't know anybody in the music industry, but it meant that I had to work a little harder to get things done. And I don't know how you feel about it, but the harder it is to succeed, the more likely you are to succeed in my book. I feel like put a freaking wall in front of me, I'll kick it down. You know, people said I remember trying to get a publishing deal when I first moved out here. Nobody wanted to sign me a publishing deal. I started my own publishing company, signed some people to me. You know what I mean? It's like, that's the wonderful thing about this. It's like, you put a freaking road in front of me, a roadblock in front of me, I will just build over it, round it, tunnel around it, whatever. I sort of relish that stuff. So anyway, long story. There's so many different things. I think the biggest thing for me was I moved to the north of England and left home at 16. My parents sold their house, this tiny little bungalow they had, a semi-detached bungalow, and moved down to Cornwall, basically not to retire, basically retire. My dad just went to paint down there, bought a house down there, and I left home. I was 16. I'm like, I can't do that. And I moved to the north of England, and I joined a club band playing covers. And about 3 or 4 nights a week for 2 years, I got paid to play covers. And if you want to fast track, you know, your abilities, learn covers by great bands, you know, because suddenly you're like, the Beatles did it. You know, I did my 10,000 hours in 2 years. Yeah, and as a result, I feel like I'm a really good musician. I have a great ear. I did it from learning other people's songs. It was like a fast track. I highly recommend it, you know. So that was how I got started.
When did you start? When did you? How did you get involved with engineering and mixing and recording? And did you work at a studio? Did you have your own home studio? Both?
It was home studio. It was you know, necessity was the mother of invention. You know, I started like many people of our age group, the sort of Gen X's, us Generation X's, is that what we did is we would take like a tape player. I don't know if you did this on your first experience, but my dad had a hi-fi, a Sony hi-fi, and a Philips cassette player. So I would play like, you know, like a rhythm guitar part, you know, really naively, like, and I'd play that. Now take that cassette out of the Philips, put it in into the stereo, press play on that, and then have my Philips cassette player, and then do a really bad, you know, solo over it, and then play a harmony, you know, and that would be me trying to be Brian May, playing like these really naive, you know, no bend, no feel, no vibrato kind of guitar solos after over 1, 4, 5 kind of chord progressions. And that's how I started, you know, quote unquote, producing at like 15 or 16 years old. And I didn't get a 4-track cassette player until I was about 17 or 18, because, you know, I was making money playing in the club bands, but it was enough to pay my rent and buy food, but and the odd beer or two back when I used to drink as a kid, but I didn't have enough spare money to buy a 4-track. But the first 4-track I think I bought, I think it was a Porter 01. It was whatever the base model Tascam was. So in the late 80s, probably a Porter 01. I do think actually for me, I don't know what your progression was, but I actually think the biggest explosion for me was ADATs. When the ADATs came in like 91, 92, the quality was so massive for the price, you know. And I know it had been around, that technology, because Frank Zappa, you know, I'm sure you're a Zappa fan as well, had used tape to record to in the late 70s. He had already understood that was like 16-bit digital quality. It was actually quite high. And so he had sort of pioneered it through the late 70s and 80s. So, but, you know, Alesis, you know, God bless them. They still exist. I never see their name anymore. Anyway, but Alesis, they realized that was a really good idea, and they created an 8-track player. And I remember buying my first, like, the quality level from an 8-track cassette, you know, to ADAT was like massive explosion. And so then I suddenly had a studio. I could now bring people into my, you know, into my personal studio by using an ADAT, and I had a Soundtrax Topaz console, for anybody who remembers those. It was a gray console that had like pastel covered knobs on it. It was actually really good. It sounded really, really good. I bought it super, super cheap, and then eventually I expanded to 2 ADATs, so suddenly I'm now 16-track. But honestly, as soon as Pro Tools and the first DAWs came out, it was like, for us as guitar players, it suddenly meant we could compete with you guys, because you would have your little MIDI keyboards and play parts and then edit your MIDI, and we had no way of doing that with ADATs and tape and everything. It's like, you know, if the chord was late, the chord was late, and then suddenly it was like, wait there, I could move that back. Oh, and then it felt like as a guitar player we were on the same level as where keyboard players have been since the early 80s. So that was pretty huge. And I didn't get into Pro Tools on the first iteration. I think I started, I want to say 3.8 or 3 something. It was pretty naive, and I had a D24 that I bought used. Remember the D24? That was before Mix Plus. Sorry. That was before Mix Plus. And it was like that was like the professional one, you know, and I had that. And so I bought a used one of those with a Mac. Wasn't it the 7600 that had the 6 slots? We're talking like mid-90s. You remember?
I vaguely remember that.
Did you start off with Ataris? Did you start off with Ataris?
I had an Atari with Dr. T software and
Nice.
Track, Logic, whatever it was called back then, Cubase. I had it all. But you're right. Us keyboard players kind of had a head start on the MIDI sequencing before that. But I had all the Pro Tools from Sound Tools, Sound Designer, the very, very beginning, the add-in. And yeah, seeing it grow like that. And then, of course, the interesting thing, by the way, and I know you know this from the very beginning. So right around the late 90s, IK Multimedia, not everybody knows this, but came out with the first analog modeling software, which was T-Rax, the standalone version, because there were no plugins yet, and it was the first program to actually have the knobs and the to emulate the analog gear. And that came out, and then I had my company Sonic Reality, and in the early 2000s, right at the beginning of Virtual Instruments, I connected and partnered up with IK Multimedia for Sample Tank, Sounds, and
Nice.
Sonic Synth, and Miroslav Philharmonic, which, by the way, 50% off right now in the Spring Strings promo if you go to ikmultimedia.com to the promo section. And by the way, speaking of, I'm going to repeat that we are going to be giving away a product. We give away a product in every stream at 4 p.m. on the IK Multimedia channel. And again, I learned this from the master here, Warren Huart, who gives away products all the time on Produce Like a Pro, including IK Multimedia products. And
Absolutely.
so at the end of this broadcast, we're going to ask a question about Sunset Sound, and we'll probably have answered the question when we talk about it. So why don't we do that? Why don't we talk about
ask me about Sunset
your
Sound.
experiences and your love for Sunset Sound?
Well, first of all, let's just a quick about moment of silence. But unfortunately, we did lose Craig Hubler just before Christmas. I think he died in November. And Craig ran Sunset Sound how many years? Nearly 30. It was like 80.
Yeah, like that, yeah.
81, 82, I think he came on board. So I think it was 28 years. So he was there with Van Halen records all the way through all the Prince albums that were made there, which all the Prince's biggest records. Purple Rain was made there, Under a Cherry Moon. All of these incredible albums were all done there. And Craig was an institution. And not only is Sunset Sound one of the best sounding rooms, and they have 3 incredible sounding rooms ever in the history of music with the best freaking consoles ever. Full-time techs, 2 of them, 2 full-time techs. Everything always works. You know, for a studio that's been around since, what, 60 or something? It's very early 60s, isn't it? It's just, you know, for me, it was simple as this. I bought records, stores albums. Love Forever Changes, one of the greatest albums of all time. Anybody watching here doesn't know the band Love, Arthur Lee and Love, get to know them and go and buy, download, stream Forever Changes. It's one of the greatest albums ever. It's absolutely insanely well recorded at Sunset Sound. And it's one of the reasons why I wanted to get into production. I couldn't believe when you hear Alone Again comes in. Oh, my hairs are standing on end, by the way. Can you see all of that? Just thinking about first hearing that record. What a masterpiece. So there I am, like I'm in love with all these albums. And, you know, so I'm thinking of, you know, and I'm looking at all of the liner notes, and we were joking about earlier, which are disappearing fast, but looking at these liner notes and seeing Sunset Sound, Sunset Sound, Sunset Sound, and just like going, that's the studio I want to work at. So as soon as I got to LA, and the first time I had any kind of check whatsoever, you know, where I could actually go in and book a studio, first studio book, the first studio I could book, I, of course, booked Sunset Sound. And ever since then, it's my favorite studio to work in. I know all the people there really well. Paul, the owner, is the son of the guy that started the studio. I mean, everything just feels great about it. It's just a wonderful place to work. And so when you did that plugin, that was a pretty huge thing for me. I mean, I can't tell you how many songs I pull up on a daily basis where I tracked it at Sunset Sound. And to hear that same room sounds now be available with your plugin is absolutely huge. So great work.
Thank you. And so now, by the way, I just want to remind everybody that on the IK Multimedia YouTube channel is an in-depth interview with Warren Huart talking about Sunset Sound at Sunset Sound. I think we were in Studio 3, was it?
Yeah, we're in Studio 3.
So why don't you just tell us briefly, you know, this is something that is an ongoing thing that you'll see from Warren in his show, where he really gets into the details of how to use IK Multimedia plugins. I know that you're a big fan of T-Rax itself, and you use that in mixing.
Yep.
So I definitely, and you know, one of the great things is in his show, there's so many different, you know, plugins are great, but they mean different things to different people song to song. So, you know, different songs call for different approaches and flavors and whatnot. But so there's definitely a lot for IK multimedia users to gain from watching Produce Like a Pro with Warren, where he really digs in and pulls out IK multimedia plugins and other plugins and shows you how, from other companies, and shows you how he uses it in contests, because that's everything. And some of the stuff that you've talked about, I've seen you talk about. We even did a 4-hour stream on your channel at Sunset Sound, which was epic. But
it was pretty epic.
When you talk about how you use Sunset Sound, so tell us a little bit about, you know, it's studio, Sunset Sound Studio Reverb. It's a suite of ambient sounds. So you've got plates, chambers, ISO booths, rooms. Tell us about how, in general, people would use that besides just as a reverb.
Well, I think one of the things, no, it's a really good question because it comes up a lot. I'm blessed to have the Produce Like a Pro Academy, and we have 3,250 members in there. It's pretty huge. And every week we listen to mixes and we critique them. We do it live. We do about 2 hours every week. Sometimes we're doing 2 a week. I've been doing lots of mixing live inside of the academy. And what happens is, a lot of the time when you're using virtual instruments in particular, there can be a problem that everything is just so dry, so upfront. It's wonderful. You know, I remember, you probably can, this will probably resonate with you. When we first started doing this, we wanted those sounds. We wanted access to the most perfectly recorded piano in the entire world. We wanted this orchestra. We wanted, you know, these synths and everything. Now we have them. We realize that if we only use virtual instruments, everything is like upfront. Oh, this is going to be perfectly recorded and loud. This is perfectly recorded and loud. And before you know it, you build up this virtual landscape of just instruments that are all competing to be the loudest thing in the mix. One of the beauties of going to a studio like Sunset Sound and all the classic studios is there is a ambience or a room tone that is naturally added by just literally sticking a cabinet in the middle of a room and putting a microphone on it. Whatever you do, it's going to be in there, let alone just blending in like actual room mics. So that allows things to sound more like they have a place. And that's where this plugin comes in, really, for sure. And I think the obvious thing is like, yes, you're going to get the sound of the plates that are in there, which are unbelievable. And of course, the echo chambers, which are unbelievable. And by the way, IK Guitarist, does he work for you? They work for you? The IK
Yes.
Guitarist is on it.
That's Peter.
Okay,
I think it's Peter.
Peter wanted me to do the thing that I always do with the "You Really Got Me," because you got the because it goes you know, it's pan to one side. Yeah, Van Halen on one side. So he does because he does it without sliding the chord. He goes, because it's like that sound of the chambers pan to the other side. So you got that's what I was doing, because you just can hear that and it just goes to the other side.
Oh yeah, definitely.
After this stream,
I love the video that you did. The video that you did. Yeah, you brought students there at Sunset Sound and taking them, showing them, walking them into an echo chamber. Because for those who don't know, an echo chamber is an actual room. It's before there were devices to do reverb. It was the very first type of reverb. It was literally an echoey room with a speaker and a microphone recording, and you send a sound to the speaker and it echoes, reverberates. People can, you know, you can actually turn your bathroom into an echo chamber. It's probably pretty good. And so I think Peter's going to post the link. That was a great video that you did.
Great.
So, all right. So we're okay. So now we're going to get to the part that people have been waiting for, I think, because they can have the plugin. And I've learned from Warren that the questions, you have to answer a question. Peter is my Eric. He's my Matt. So he's going to pick the winner randomly. So everyone has a chance to win. And the question I have is, name simply one band, we've named a few, that is recorded at Sunset Sound Studios. And it's not the first person to name it. Just go ahead and name them.
Yep.
Warren just played a riff from one of them, so that's easy.
I can. How about some clues? How about the most obvious?
That's a good one. Let's do more clues. What else can you do?
A lot of that was recorded. That song was recorded in Studio One. What else? Yeah. Yeah, there's you know, I'm trying to think of other bands because there's so many, but I don't. It's like it's weird when you think of Door. Okay, sorry. So yeah, just like yeah. Yeah. I mean, there's an obvious one there that there's like with American bands. Yeah. Yeah. Well, I think everybody's getting it. I didn't. Somebody saying the Knack. That might be true. I didn't know the Knack had recorded there. I didn't know Greta Van Fleet had recorded there.
No, they.
I think Greta Van Fleet might be a joke because I think somebody's making a joke because I played this. Is that Greta Van Fleet?
No, it's Spirit.
Oh,
okay, we have a winner.
Who's the winner? What did they say?
Winner, Guardian 24. Congratulations! You just won yourself Sunset Sound Studio Reverb. And by the way,
nice.
Just so people know, it's normally priced at $250, but the intro price has been extended, I think, through the end of the month. So it's $149. And also another thing to mention, all IK Multimedia plugins you can use for free as a demo. It works fully for like 2 weeks. So you can literally make a record with it and then decide after if you want to buy it. So that's kind of cool. So you can download the demo. I strongly recommend it. And especially, this is what I recommend. I recommend that you download Sunset Sound Studio Reverb from ikmultimedia.com. Try the demo out yourself, but do this. Do yourself a favor. Go to the IK Multimedia YouTube. Watch Warren's video. There's also a video with Joe Ciccarelli and a video with Bruce Bodnick, the producer of The Doors, producer engineer of The Doors, all giving cool tips on what you can do with Sunset Sound.
He did Forever Changes by Love as well. Bruce Bodnick, yeah.
Oh, yes, yeah, exactly. Yeah. Oh. So, and Jack White, he worked, Joe worked with Jack White and so many people.
Joe's amazing.
Morrissey.
I might argue that Joe Ciccarelli is the greatest living engineer, easily. Yeah, he's easily the greatest living engineer. Him and Bruce Bodnick. It's interesting. Both of those guys, now that Bill Price has died, God rest his soul. Bill Price, whose resume was just freaking unreal. Bill Price is like prog through the 70s, Pretenders' first 2 albums, Nevermind the Bollocks, the Sex Pistols, and then ended up like doing User Illusion 1 and 2. Bill Price's resume is unbelievable. So for me, it was always like John Leckie, Bill Price, Bruce Bodnick, and Joe Ciccarelli. And then, of course, the New York guys that I'm friends with, like Jack Douglas, and Roy Cicala, and of course, Shelley Yacker. So those are the guys that when I'm sitting in England, they're just a correlation. You see all of these albums, you're like, wait there, they worked on all of these incredible albums. Names kept coming up over and over. But it is interesting that the LA guys, they all worked at Sunset, all of the best LA guys.
Definitely. All right. So Guardian 24, just PM us, or Peter will PM you or something like that, and we'll get you the code for your lovely Sunset Sound Studio Reverb, which we hope you enjoy. And I want to thank Warren for joining me. This has been a lot of fun. It's always fun talking to you, I got to say. We could talk for hours, as we have in the past. And be sure to check out Warren Huart's Produce Like a Pro. He's been doing really cool little snippets, too, on Instagram. So you could just catch literally a minute at a time, and you'll pick up something just in that 1 minute. He's got free courses right now. What did you say, 4 or 5 free courses?
I think we have 5 free courses, and we've done 2 mixing in the box streams, and we just got off a 2-hour mixing in the box to talk to you. So so you can go there, you can download the multi-tracks, and you can follow me mixing. And we're doing a 30-day free trial of the Academy. We're doing tons of stuff. I found the video that went up yesterday with me in it, so I will post that as well.
Awesome.
Very exciting.
All right, Warren, take care of yourself.
Thank you.
Be safe, and we'll talk soon.
Thanks,
Take
Dave.
care.
A lot of fun. I really
Bye,
appreciate it.
everybody.
Keep doing what you're doing, my friend. Thanks.
You
Bye-bye.
too, buddy.